If you've ever felt abandoned, unworthy, or not good enough in a relationship with a narcissist, you need to know this. These feelings can have roots in your childhood, but the narcissist amplified them by transferring their unprocessed pain onto you. Today, I'm going to explain trauma transference, what it really is, because not a lot of people are talking about it or understand it. I'm going to explain to you how it can keep you stuck and how it can make you think that this is your stuff when actually it may not even be that at all. And I'm going to show you how you can send it back to where that energy really belongs. Because this is how you break the spell and you reclaim your sovereignty. So, welcome, dear Thrivers, to a live Thriver TV session where we go quantum for real solutions that heal for real from narcissistic abuse. And if you don't know me, I'm Melanie Tonia Evans. I'm creator of the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program, which is quantum solutions to healing from narcissistic abuse, which is so much more faster and direct than trying to do it cognitively. And I am a pioneer in quantum trauma healing. Today, I want to speak to something that so many people intuitively feel but may struggle to explain. And it's that moment when the emotional weight inside you feels really off, like it doesn't really belong to you. And it's something going on inside of you, and you may be feeling like, is this really mine? Even though I'm feeling it so intensely, or is it actually something else? And what if a lot of those feelings actually don't belong to you? That's trauma transference. And in relationships with narcissists, it's actually a silent epidemic that not a lot of people realize is actually going on with you. So we're going to unpack exactly how this happens and how to send energy back so that you can reclaim your energy and your truth. And of course, your healing and start to get better much faster and much more directly. So let me start by asking you something, Thrivers. Have you ever been with somebody, especially a toxic person or somebody that's confusing you, they're not meeting your needs or your wants or your boundaries, they're telling you that you're the problem? Maybe you're still with them, maybe you've separated with them. But what happens is you're having these overwhelming feelings where you feel defective, you feel wrong, you feel this horrible shame. And of course, you're feeling abandoned and unlovable. And maybe even after separating, these feelings can hit out of nowhere. And I just want you to drop a me in the comments or a broken heart if you've ever felt those feelings and you've wondered, why is this pain so extreme? And here's what I want you to know. Narcissists don't just mistreat you from their disordered, shame-based self, from their false self. They also offload their unhealed wounds. And they're doing this very unconsciously, subconsciously. It's in their defense mechanisms. And they may not even be aware that they're doing trauma transference psychically, but they actually do that. So this is their shame. This is their feeling of defectiveness. This is their self-disgust that they're covering up with the false self, that version and that image of themselves that they're trying to project to the world, that I'm beyond reproach, that I'm untouchable, that I'm perfect, that I've got it all together, which is just paper thin, because the reality of that is under that is the shame-based defective feelings and their literal terrors of rejection and abandonment. And that gets projected onto you. Now, because they're never going to meet them. They're never going to hold them. They're never going to heal them. They're never going to admit them. They're never going to get vulnerable and intimate with them, which is what's necessary to heal them. They're going to disown them and deflect. So that gets transferred on to you. Now, here's the kicker and here's the truth, because we have come from childhoods of unconscious parenting. Maybe we had a narcissistic parent, maybe we had a codependent, and maybe we had shame-based upbringing where we felt like we weren't good enough or we weren't lovable because our emotions didn't matter. We weren't validated emotionally, which meant, well, if my emotions don't matter, there must be something wrong with me. Maybe I'm defective. And maybe we had some of those wounds already. We had them from childhood. If we look at it quantumly, which is a wider, deeper lens, we brought them in from past lives as well. We're on a soul journey, having an evolution experience. And this is what we're doing in this lifetime, attracting the people and the situations so that we can come out of karmic patterns and into a higher frequency of love and life and contribution to ourselves and to others. So we've brought this stuff in with us. But what happens is we're not just emotionally suffering from narcissists, we're also getting energetically attacked as well. So are you feeling this? It's like I have these overwhelming feelings. Maybe it's when I'm triggered by this person, or maybe it's out of nowhere where I feel, and this can come for people who've done a ton of work on themselves. Like you've already been aware, you've already been doing inner work, you've been doing your shadow work, but yet if you're in close proximity with somebody who has disowned and separated from their own internal traumas and has put defenses all around them, and you're in close proximity, you're going to start wearing that deflection and that infiltration. So you may be shocked where you think, hang on, I've done all this work and I've come all this far, I've come out of my codependencies, but yet I am feeling these shame-based traumas of defectiveness, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, or I've got a terror of abandonment. But it's kind of like intuitively you're going, but is this actually mine? Or is it coming from somewhere else? So let me know. Am I speaking to you? Is this making sense to you? Let me know if you've had that intuitive gut feeling. Maybe this isn't mine. Or are you open to thinking, maybe not all of this is mine? Just say yes in the chat, or say truth. Say truth if that's what you've been feeling. Okay, now also too, I want you to share this video with anybody else who you are seeing really suffering in these feelings, with somebody who may need to hear that maybe this is not all this. Okay, tag them in or share this video with them. Pass it on, because this is a really big thing that people need to understand, trauma transference. Okay, so trauma transference, how it's happening is the narcissist can't face their inner pain, so they unconsciously project it on to you. So they're trying to unburden themselves from the stuff they're never going to face, never going to heal, and never going to evolve from. So they make you feel it. They make you carry it, and they make you believe that it's yours. Now, what happens when you feel these things is you get trauma bonded, but also too, you find yourself doing all the work in the relationship. You may go and do so much work on yourself. However, they're not picking up their pieces. They're not doing their side of the fence, because narcissists don't. Narcissists don't self-reflect. They don't meet their inner traumas, and they don't heal from them. And because they don't do that, you find yourself in a trauma bond, lecturing, prescribing, and taking all of the burden. That's part of trauma transference. You believe, okay, well, I've got all of my stuff in here as well, but you may be carrying the load of their stuff as well. And in fact, you are, and you believe it's yours, but it never was. You may still have parts, but you've already taken responsibility. You've already been doing the work. You've already been on a journey. Now you're just heaped with all of this stuff that the narcissist is projected into you. So not only are they blaming you for the things that they will never take responsibility for twisting it and turning it and doing Davo and making it your fault, this is deeper and more creepy. Those deep primal feelings of being defective, wrong, shameful, not enough, not lovable, unworthy, I'm going to be abandoned if people see the real me, that dark, dark, deep shame, they are putting it into you energetically. And that's why you feel so broken, so worthless. How many people in a narcissistic relationship you have actually felt, I feel like nothing. I feel worthless. I feel completely broken and like I am worth nothing. I feel like I don't even deserve to exist. How many people have felt like that in narcissistic relationships? Say I have in the chat if you have. Because I promise you that is what the narcissist feels like every single day, that they are covering up with the false self. That is the feeling they do not, when they go into narcissistic injury, everything collapses and they're in that. Okay, that's why they get triggered on a hairline. That's why whenever they're held to account or you're saying anything that's perceived as criticism, that hairline trigger is the horror and the terror of feeling those feelings that they refuse to feel and meet to heal. And that's what you end up carrying, and you feel like that's you, but it's not. Does that make sense? Okay. So you've been the vessel to take that on because you're in proximity, because you're trauma bonded, because you still stay stuck with them, and because your body was already wired to take on that stuff from your earlier trauma in childhood. And sadly, unconsciously, if we haven't done that work yet, and as empaths, we're willing to do that work. We're willing to take responsibility. We're willing to meet our wounds and to feel them. And we do have enough consciousness to do it, and we have a conscience and we're accountable. Narcissists never will be. Okay? But if we haven't found yet how to mop that stuff up, then we are the susceptible vessel that takes on the trauma transference, and we start holding it in our being for the narcissist. And unconsciously, narcissists can feel familiar because this is the pain you've had in childhood and past lives, where you've been connected with people trying to survive, to get them to be a source of love, approval, survival, and security for you, where they've actually been a false self that is there to mine you, avoid accountability, and to project their traumas onto you and make you responsible for them, to off-burden themselves emotionally. Okay, let's go a little deeper. Let's have a look at why narcissists don't face their inner defectiveness. Narcissists refuse to feel their inner pain, and that's why they push it onto you. And here's the truth. At the core of every narcissist is a deep, unbearable wound. And it is that sense of unworthiness, rejection, shame, and emptiness that is so intense, because they have disowned and divorced their inner child, their inner being that was carrying those traumas, whether it be from past lives, and their amygdala kind of just shut that out. They were like that from the moment they were born, and they hit the ground running. This is nature and nurture. Wiring can be there from day dot. Okay, this is not just created through childhood programming. There was also the susceptibility of the character that is the makeup of the person as they're born. It's nature as well as nurture. I completely believe that. Okay, so what has happened is these feelings that are on board, the narcissist believes that this isn't a gateway to growth. The empaths who are taking responsibility believe that their wounds are a gateway to growth and to change and to a better life. And that's why we do the work. However, a narcissist never ever thinks like that, because how they think is to feel those feelings is a pit to annihilation, and they won't go near it. And that's what the defenses are that are built up around that. So they've built an entire identity around avoiding these deep internal wounds. So they wear masks of superiority, blame, and control. They think they're better than everybody else, but it's a false economy because they actually feel really inferior to everybody else. It's a cover-up. Now, if they were to actually sit in their own trauma to admit, I feel not enough, or I feel deeply ashamed of who I am, that would collapse their entire false self. The false self cannot exist where there's authenticity, humility, and accountability. And we don't want a false self, because a false self is a path to destruction. We want a true self of authenticity and to source life through there, which is what empaths want. But narcissists think that everybody operates the way they do. They can't even fathom a path through to source connection and true connection to themselves. So they are so attached to the false self that if I have any vulnerability, if I admit that I feel like I'm not enough and I'm deeply ashamed of who I am, if I admit that, to go to it and hold it and heal it, they don't even get that far. If I admit it, I'm going to collapse my entire false self structure, and they will, because the ego can't exist when that happens. And the false self is all that they have. It's all that they have. They're living life completely through that. So what do they do instead with those deep, unworthy, defective feelings? They outsource them. They unconsciously assign you the unbearable task of feeling what they refuse to feel. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? Let me know in the comments if I'm making sense. Just say truth if I'm making sense. Okay? Or this resonates. Okay, so their inner voice is saying, I can't carry this shame. It's going to annihilate me. It's going to rip down my defenses and my false self. It's going to take me somewhere where I'm going to dissolve and not exist and be annihilated. So I can't carry this shame. I have to deflect it on to you. And if we've been trauma primed from childhood, if we've had a nervous system that's still carrying our wounds from childhood, because remember, in childhood, it's not like we could pack our bag and we could say, okay, these are my values and my truth. These are my wants, my needs, and my boundaries. And unless you meet them, you're not my reality. You're not my reality, and we're separating. As a child, we couldn't do that, could we? We had to move into skirmishes and survival programs to be able to deal. And as empaths, what did we do? We've got fight, flee, freeze, or fawn when we're in trauma responses, when our needs aren't met or valid, when we don't have our boundaries respected, which is the knowing of our personal sanctity. And we had that as children, but it got violated in one way or another. And if we weren't loved for who we were, but rather our performance, or if we weren't given emotional attunement, which means that your feelings are valid, which means you are valid. We had our own traumas, but as empaths, what we did is we went into freeze or fawn. Often fawn, we went into people pleasing. Maybe when we got older, we tried some lecturing or prescribing or freeze, or we just detached and we just thought, well, they don't have the resources, our parents, and we carried all of these wounds. But what happens is when we're trauma primed, we're trauma bonded to narcissists, and we go back to our trauma responses. So we might, as an adult, especially if we've been betrayed, we might go into fight or flee. We could go into freeze and fawn. And if we're fighting, we might do lecturing and prescribing, which feels like trying to make a grown adult understand what a 5-year-old would understand. And they heard you the first time. And if you're walking out the door and then they're ready to actually get it, that's manipulation. That's not love, because love, they could have got it at day one, right? So if our nervous system is still primed from childhood, we are accepting these projections, these trauma transferences. And then what happens is we're fighting in there to try to survive. Just as children, we had our skirmishes and we feel like that child again. Plus, we're carrying all of the deep shame that the narcissist that's been projected into us that they're not willing to carry. And it's not because we're weak. It's actually because you're empathetic. It's because you're sensitive. It's because you are wired. You've been primed for trauma, but you're wired for love. You're wired for authenticity. You're wired for connection. That's what you're wanting. And this is why you are a prime target for trauma transference, because you've got an open heart and an open being where it all gets permeated into your system. And your sensitivity is a power. It's not a curse. I know it gets twisted against you. I know the narcissist says to you, you're oversensitive. That is a manipulative, abusive statement. And that is, I don't want to honor your feelings because that holds me to account and I don't want to face my own feelings. That's what that statement means. Does that make sense? Let me know if you're understanding what I'm saying in the chat, because this is really, really important. Okay? Let me know if this resonates. Because what's happening, if this resonates with you and you recognize this pattern that you might have been in or maybe you're still in, you're actually drowning in somebody else's pain as well as your own. And that's trauma transference in its rawest form. And this is why narcissists don't heal. They don't heal because they refuse to enter the fire of their own feelings. But empaths can and do. And when you do, you break the cycle for yourself. And what does that look like? We detach from them because it's not your circus. It's actually not your circus. It's theirs and they're never going to deal with it and you can't for them. And they know that. But it feeds the false self and it feeds the ego. Look how much I can emotionally affect you, which means this isn't about love. This is about control. And this is about confirmation to them that the false self exists because of your emotional reactions, trying to get decency, sensibility, and attunement out of somebody who does not have any capacity or desire to give you that. This is not about a reciprocal relationship. It's about control and superiority. And if you're emotionally affected, they have power over you, they have control. And that's not going to change because they're never going to self-reflect and they're never going to heal. Okay, so, but when we do, the cycle breaks. And it doesn't just break for us, it can break for our future generations. To understand how to disconnect from trauma transference, take our power back, do our healing, do our unfinished business from our childhood where we've been primed from that, so that our sensitivity and our heart opens to ourselves first and we know our needs, wants, and our boundaries, and we never again get sucked into that pit of dealing with stuff that we've left far behind in the past. Okay? where we're dealing with the basic fundaments of human responsibility and relationship, which are very, very simple: humility, accountability, and honesty. Three things a narcissist will never do because they will not meet their true feelings and their wounds. That's why they're never accountable. Okay, so here's what I want to ask you, beautiful thrivers. Have you felt like you're drowning in emotions that didn't make sense, that don't make sense? You know you've done your work. You know you've been on a journey forever and you're right back in it. That's trauma transference. It still means you've got more to clean up and more to heal, but it does not mean that you've gone right back into that. It means you've taken on other people's stuff that they're not dealing with. Okay. And it's painful. All right, so here's the miracle in all of this. The moment that you recognize this isn't yours, this isn't the foundational piece of you, even if you're still working through your stuff, none of us are perfect. It's not about perfection, our growth ascension journey. It's about presence. It's about authenticity. It's about honesty. It's about openness with ourselves. Going, yeah, I've got some more stuff to work on, but I'm not going to take on your stuff and work on your stuff that you're refusing to even look at. I'm going to disconnect and say, you go do your life and your journey. That's your responsibility, and I really don't care. And I'm going to do mine. Okay, so what happens is we can actually send it back. We can send it back. When you recognize it's not yours, you can give it back. You can send it back. That doesn't mean with hatred. It's not about revenge. This isn't about blame. It's about the energetic clarity and the quantum truth that you are not a dumping ground for somebody else's unresolved shame. You're not the container for their unhealed childhood. You're not the carrier of their karma. You are a sovereign being, and you can choose to stop playing host to whatever does not belong in your field. How does that sound? How does that sound? How does that sound? You can stop playing host to stuff that does not belong in your field. What belongs in your field is responsibility and growth and healing, not defenses and disassociation and disowning. Doesn't belong in your field. So if you're ready to break this cycle, if you're ready to give back what was never yours, let's do a little invocation about this. Let's do a power statement together that's going to help you start getting free today. How does that sound? Let's do it together. So let's just breathe deeply. And I want you to repeat this after me. Repeat it out loud or in your mind. And I want you to open up your body and open up your heart space, because that gets this embodied and it makes it powerful. You're talking to the field, your soul, source. This is manifestation in action. Okay, so repeat this. I now return all energetic projections, burdens and disowned parts from others, that are not mine to carry. With love, with grace, and with full sovereignty, I release them now. And just breathe it out. How does that feel in your body? You might want to repeat this. Don't be surprised if you feel an energetic drop off and like, oh, I feel more in my body now. I feel more at home. And that's how you know it's not your stuff. And now I want you to repeat this. Open and breathe. I am no longer the container. For anyone else's shame, blame, or abandonment. I am the keeper of only my truth. My light. And my soul's sacred essence. What is not mine shall not remain. What is mine returns in fullness. I am clear. I am whole. I am sovereign. And so it is. Breathe that in, darling soul. Let your field feel the lightness of that. This is about breaking a karmic contract. This is a quantum leap out of trauma transference. And from that place, everything can change. You take your power, your soul, and your life back. How are you feeling? Let me know in the chat. How are you feeling? Beautiful. It's time. It's time. And thrivers, if this is resonating deeply, if you're realizing that the pain you've been carrying isn't just emotional, it's actually energetic, then it's time to look at it at a quantum level, much deeper. Because this is the only space I know of in the last 20 years that I've been helping people get free from narcissistic abuse in record time in the most direct ways. The quantum work, the level, is the only way I know to clear narcissists out of our energy field. And it's so powerful for trauma transference, projection wounds, and all the invisible cords and trauma bonds that have kept us tied to narcissistic abuse and the reoccurring pattern of narcissistic, unconscious, toxic people. For deeper levels with this, I use, and a lot of people in our community use, quantum freedom healing, which is the healing component in all of my healing modules, and especially the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program known as NARP, which you may have heard about. We've got lots of NARPers in the chat today that I can see. Because just information, just researching is not transformation at the inner level. And that's what we need to heal, because that's where the true shifts happen. That's how you release not just the pain, but the pattern. And that's how I broke free, was the healings of NARP, Corner Freedom Healing. And it's how tens of thousands of others have in this community as well. So if you want to stop carrying what's not yours and really get down to it in the deep quantum way, you can come into our community, find out about this, because NARP is here for you. And you can check out the link in the description above. So please know, you don't have to spend your life carrying this trauma transference, because you are meant to thrive. You were designed to thrive. We all were. And this conversation today, it was a deep one, and I'm going to be doing many more like it. And it's real, because trauma transference is one of the most hidden, insidious ways that we lose ourselves to narcissistic and toxic abusers. But now you know. And now I really hope that you feel inspired to know your power, that you can choose something else. And the awakening to this is such a powerful way out of the trance. So if this spoke to your soul, please let me know in the comments. And if you've got any questions, I'm going to be replying to them later today. So please leave them in the chat. And if you know somebody else who's carrying the pain, you can really see them struggling and battling with somebody toxic in their life, especially if they're taking on the characteristics and the feelings that just really aren't this person, please share this video with them. That one share might just break the spell from them too. And if you're not already following, make sure to hit like, subscribe and follow so that you can keep up with my regular Thriver TV episodes. So thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for sharing this beautiful quantum energy. You're amazing. I want you to know you're not alone. You are powerful and you are rising. So until next time, thrive on, beautiful soul. And I look forward to answering your comments and your questions in the comments. So lots of love. See you soon. Bye-bye.